Welcome back to Flick Favorites. I'm going to explain an action, drama, thriller film from 2018, titled Red Sparrow. In my opinion, this movie is extremely well made and tense. Spoilers ahead. Enjoy the content. The scene begins with the main character Dominika Egorova, a famous ballerina. She goes to work, changes and puts on makeup before going to meet the guests, which include her uncle Ivan Egorov. He introduces her to Dmitry Ustinov, a Russian gangster. Moments later, the play begins, and Dominika is dancing as wonderfully as ever when suddenly, her dancing partner jumps and lands on her leg, breaking it. Dominika is immediately taken to have surgery. The other character we follow is Nate Nash, a CIA agent. He notices he's being followed by a car. Nate walks to a mysterious man, codename Marble, and hands him something. To give the man a chance to escape, Nate creates a distraction by shooting the floor and starts running away while the car chases him. He reaches town and is surrounded by the police just as he makes it to the American embassy. Inside, he meets with his bosses, who tell him the asset is safe, but Nate will still be sent back to the USA for his mistake. The next day, Ivan visits Colonel Zakharov, director of the Secret Service. In his office General Vladimir Korchnoi is there as well. Ivan is shown a video of Nate's meeting at the park and mention he's a CIA agent that left the country that morning, but their main interest lies in the other man and finding out his identity. We cut to Dominika then, who is waking up at the hospital to find her leg in a metal frame. She starts crying when she realizes she won't be able to dance again. 3 months pass. Dominika, who is still walking with the aid of a cane, is visited by Ivan. He comments on the fact a replacement for her has already been found and how the theater had been lending them the apartment and covering her mom's medical expenses, all that will stop soon now that she doesn't work for them anymore. Ivan says he wants to help her and asks her to come to him when she's ready. He also leaves an envelope for her before leaving. Dominika finds pictures that show her dancing partner has been romantically involved with her replacement, plus a recording of a conversation between them that implies he jumped on her on purpose so his girlfriend could take Dominika's place. Later that day, we find Dominika in the theater, watching her former partner and the new girl go to the steam room and Dominika follows them, only to find them having relations. Rage takes over and Dominika starts using her cane to beat them both to the ground before running away. When she arrives at her apartment, she finds her mom on the bathroom floor, the caretaker nowhere in sight. Her mom tells her she didn't come because the theater stopped paying her. Dominika goes to see her uncle to ask him for help. He accepts as long as she helps him in return with a little case. The Secret Service wants to know more about Ustinov, whom Dominika had met at the theater. Ivan wants her to approach him, befriend him and gain his trust using her charms. Dominika at first refuses, but Ivan wins her over by reminding her how awful state hospitals are and how he can give her mom the best doctors instead. That very night, Dominika goes to the hotel Ustinov is staying in, wearing the dress she's been given. She goes to the bar to wait for Ustinov to approach her first, which he does. Dominika tells him she's come to see him, wanting to feel special again, so they leave for her room. She asks the guards to give them privacy and Ustinov starts undressing as soon as his men leave the room, then asks Dominika to do the same. She does so after some hesitation, and when she comes closer, Ustinov wastes no time in taking advantage of her. Their intercourse is suddenly interrupted when a man wearing a black helmet appears behind Ustinov and cuts his throat. After asking for silence with a gesture, the man throws Dominika a coat for her to cover her blood-stained body. He shoots an employee before getting them on his bike and driving away to an abandoned building. Inside, the man takes off his helmet to reveal Sergei Matorin, another Secret Service agent sent by Ivan, who is in another room in the same building together with Korchnoi, watching Dominika on the security cameras. When Korchnoi mentions she's a witness and she should be eliminated, Ivan mentions she could be useful. Ivan changes rooms to go see Dominika, and confesses he did know what would happen in that room and didn't tell her because she wouldn't have done it if she knew. He makes her an offer then, since she's so good at this, she can be sent to a special institution to be trained to be an agent. Dominika leaves for the institution a couple of days later. When she arrives there, she's received by Matron, the headmistress of Sparrow School. Classes start soon after that. Matron talks about the modern world being in chaos and how Russia is the only country willing to make sacrifices to fix it. The students will be trained to be sparrows, spies who specialized in seduction and psychological manipulation. We then cut to Nate, who's been summoned by the CIA's discipline panel. He learns that the CIA hasn't heard anything from Marble and he takes the chance to remind them he will talk if it's Nate that contacts him. They reach a deal. Ivan, Korchnoi and Zakharov are discussing the fact Nate has been relocated to Budapest. They want to do something about it. Ivan proposes they give the mission to someone else. Back in the Sparrow School, Matron thinks Dominika still has potential. Korchnoi asks for a moment alone with her. After everyone else leaves the room, he questions Dominika again, and she explains she owes and serves the state. Moments later, Matron meets with Dominika in private again and tells her she'll be sent back to Moscow. Days later, Dominika receives a call that tells her to meet Ivan at a restaurant. When she makes it there, she sits with him and he explains her next mission. She'll be sent to Budapest to befriend Nate and gain his trust so she can learn the identity of their mole. He gives her a new passport and documents with a new name. Dominika leaves without eating. She makes it to Budapest a couple of days later, and goes to stay at an apartment she'll share with a fellow sparrow Marta. Later that day, she meets with her new boss, Station Chief Maxim Volantov, and asks him for some information on Nate. Afterward, she follows Nate around to learn his routine. The next day, Dominika starts going to the same swimming pool as Nate, and lets him go to her when they leave the building. They chit-chat a bit but Dominika plays hard to get. She also makes up a story about being a translator for the embassy. The following day, however, she doesn't find Nate at the pool, and the receptionist tells her her ID has gone missing. Turns out, Nate already knows she isn't what she says. We cut to him explaining to his superiors that she's been using many names and making the connection to Ivan. He thinks she's valuable. After some hesitation, his superiors allow him to get closer to her to gather intel. After going to Volantov to report her progress and ask for an embassy pass, Dominika visits the embassy and sees Marta chatting with Stephanie Boucher, an American politician. Nate interrupts her staring to chat, admitting he was the one to steal her ID from the pool, and asks her out to dinner the next day at 8. Dominika accepts before leaving. Nate is alone in a restaurant, waiting for his date. Thinking he's been stood up, he leaves the place, but Dominika is following him closely. Back in his apartment, Nate receives another coded message on the phone that he quickly writes down and deciphers. It says Vienna. He's about to leave when a crying Dominika rings his bell. He allows her to come in. While sharing some whiskey, Dominika tells him his boss assaulted him. When Nate asks her how she knows where he lives, she raises the volume of the TV so they can't be heard. Dominika asks him what happened in that park in Russia and kisses him after he tells her. Nate tells her to go home and figure out what she wants. The next day, Ivan visits Dominika before leaving for Vienna. He asks about her progress with Nate since their superiors are getting impatient. To buy time, she lies and tells him she's also working with Marta on her Boucher case, but she'll need more money. Ivan accepts and asks for his coat to leave. Dominika gets it for him but not without secretly taking a peek at his passport. After he's gone, Marta approaches Dominika with her gun. She overheard the lie and is angry because the Boucher case is supposed to be only hers. Marta only accepts because she has no other choice. Later on, Dominika goes to Vienna and opens a bank account there while Marta visits Volantov to tell him she knows how to get rid of Dominika. Dominika returns to her place that night and finds Marta murdered in the bathtub. Suddenly, Sergei appears behind her and grabs her by the neck to pass on a warning. This is what happens to those that share secrets. We cut to Nate there, who is reporting to his superiors about having met with Marble in Vienna. Marble has given him some files confirming Dominika is a sparrow. Meanwhile, Dominika is being interrogated by the police, but she tells them nothing. When she leaves the precinct, she finds Nate outside waiting for her. They go back to his place, where he confesses he knows she's a sparrow. Dominica tells him her story in return, putting emphasis on the fact she only cares about her mother's well-being. Nate asks her to be a double agent for him, promising her protection. She replies she needs to sleep. He gives her his room. Later in the night, she leaves the room and joins Nate on the touch. After asking if she can trust him and getting a positive answer, she makes love to him. The next morning, after she confirms she accepts his deal, Dominica goes back to her routine, writes a fake report on Nate saying she has him in her pocket and then returns to her place to wait for his signal, which is a simple phone call that plays her favorite song. Dominica meets with Nate's superiors and is put through a liar detector test to see if she can be trusted. When they accept her, she asks for money. They laugh at her, but they change their minds when she tells them she can give them Boucher. The following Friday, the whole team flies to London to meet with Boucher. Dominica stays in a special hotel room the CIA prepared for her. Moments later, while she's at the bar waiting for Boucher, he's surprised by the sudden appearance of Volantov, who supposedly wants to help. Dominica sends him to her room, otherwise his presence will scare Boucher off. Boucher arrives soon afterward and Dominica goes to her, explaining Marta sent her. Boucher doesn't like this change and is about to leave, but Dominica convinces her to stay when she threatens her with some dangerous pictures and mentions the money. Both women go to Dominica's room where Volantov is waiting. Boucher gives her the discs in exchange for the money, and Dominica pretends to take the discs to her computer to check they're real when she's actually trading them with the CIA's. Dominica and Volantov leave then after telling Boucher to wait an hour to leave too, but Boucher is anxious and drunk so she leaves soon after. When she makes it to the street, she notices she's being followed and gets scared, so she throws the money in a trash can and crosses the street where a truck hits and kills her. Dominica is in a car with Volantov when this happens, and he quickly gets the news on the phone. When they make it to Moscow, Ivan takes the discs from Volantov before arresting him. Both he and Dominica are under suspicion of having helped the Americans. When asked about it, she denies it, so she starts being tortured in different ways. They even show her a video of how Volantov was shot for lying. Ivan takes over then, and Dominica manages to manipulate him into protecting her. He tells her they've granted her request to let her keep working on Nate. Dominica returns to Budapest and meets with Nate. They go to his apartment, where he expresses his suspicions of her quick release, before they make love. In the middle of the night, Dominica wakes up. She goes to the kitchen to find Sergei torturing Nate. She pretends to be on his side at first, but when Sergei gets distracted, she hits him back. The three of them get into a fight that doesn't last long. Sergei slips and Dominica takes the chance to stab him. She wakes up in the hospital the next day, and leaves her room to have a smoke. She's then approached by Korchnoi, who reveals himself as Marble. He thinks he'll be caught soon and doesn't want to die in vain, so he asks Dominica to expose him so she can become a national hero and take his place as a mole. She gives herself up to the police and asks to see the Russian ambassador. When she's taken to him, she tells him to call Zakharov and inform him she has the name of the mole, which she'll give him in exchange for her freedom. A meeting to do the exchange is arranged later that night at an airport. Nate is angry with her because he thinks she's used him, but she has a surprise. When the Russians approach them with the mole, they take the bag off his face to reveal it's not Korchnoi, it's her uncle Ivan. Nate quickly catches on and confirms Ivan is the mole. After the exchange is done, Ivan is shot by a Russian sniper and Dominica is taken away on a helicopter. Back in Russia, she's named a heroine and allowed to have a good life with her mom. The movie ends when she receives a phone call and the only sound on the line is her favorite song. Visually the movie looks great. In particular the scenery, landscapes and locations. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Your support would be appreciated. I hope to see you next time.